Perfect. Yeah, so we can see that we're heading into this time period that you have highlighted here. And one of the things that I talked about on my channel is this fixed star constellation known as Algol. And that has mythological ties to the story of Medusa, a woman who has been, trapped and then gets revenge due to being mistreated, due like abuse and rape and things like that. Really ugly dynamics in which the revenge that's taken out on people who saw her is that they got turned to stone or they would lose their heads. And we've seen that manifest as actual attacks on Trump's head and Biden being removed from basically running for office due to issues with his head or with his ability to comprehend things and to understand the world. And so, what's interesting about the middle of October is we're going to have a retriggering of that same constellation yet again in the constellation of Algol, and this is going to be around the 13th of October. Okay, very very close to the time period that you're talking about or asking about. And one of the things that's important about this constellation is that it's at the highest point of the sky in Donald Trump's chart. It not only impacts him, it impacts Biden, and it's also a constellation of significance in the chart of Israel as well, and the New York Stock Exchange. So it's interesting you asked about the middle of October because that constellation is being impacted. We have this series of eclipses, and I would pay attention, if it were me, just in terms of the news cycle, to what happens to Israel, which we've talked about several times in this podcast, Biden and Trump, and markets. I would definitely expect some volatility. The last time this constellation was impacted, there was an attempt on Trump's life. It wasn't good for Biden. He got removed from the race basically, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see continuation of these stories or these narratives. Okay, so one of the things for Biden that I observed in his chart is that the moon for him is moving below the horizon in his chart, in the place of his chart that's opposite his body. So that's sunset. So his moon is setting, which we can interpret that to mean his mind is setting. His mind is going away, or he's going to sleep. It could mean a coma, a retirement to Florida, or something like that. But Joe's going away even more. He's actually going to be Sleepy Joe with what the charts are telling me. He's going to sleep for some way, somehow. He's disappearing even more out of the limelight.
Yeah, we gotta Walt Disney him and fucking cryogenically freeze him.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
let's turn him into let's turn him into a popsicle and shoot it into outer space.
memorialize him in space or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something's gonna happen with him and probably with Trump too. The thing with him is Venus has been in the sign of Libra, which has been protective for him. Libra is actually a sign that belongs to the planet Venus, so things go Venus's way when it's placed there. That's not the case anymore. Venus is now in the sign of Scorpio, where it doesn't really like being. That's not as protective for Trump either in his own chart as well as it was placed in the sign of Libra. That's also the same for markets, by the way. Like we've had Mercury in Virgo. Mercury owns the sign of Virgo, so it does well there. Same thing with Venus and Libra. So Mercury talks about trade and markets, and Venus talks about desirable things, money, things that we want, right? So money and markets have been doing well in September with Mercury in Virgo and Venus in Libra. We're out of that time period now. Okay, so as we now go into solar eclipse territory in more of October, as we've said many times, expect more volatility in markets. And there's less of a protective influence for Trump here. So if there's yet another attempt, which I also predicted there will be more attempts, I would be very concerned for his health around this time frame. And
Yeah.
go
Are
ahead.
you talking, can you go more specific about the time frame, the date? Are you talking about the
So
12th?
so this is particularly around October 13th, and I'm mentioning this because of the time period you mentioned here, the 17th of October,
Yeah.
because the charts show me that there's going to be, or you guys have to remember, so lunar. on a mundane level, which means on a world
Sure.
astrological interpretation level, the
Hmm.
moon is going to represent the people in general, all of us, whereas the sun can speak to what's happening to the leadership, leaders of countries, companies, big institutions, stuff like that. The sun has to do with the ego and the career as well on a personal level, where the moon is more of our emotions, our needs, our home, our mothers, the feminine energy, the things that support the body and the person. Okay.
Hmm.
So, and
Well, brother, really quickly, just while we have that thought, because you were isolating it down to Trump
yeah,
and potential events
mhm,
regarding him, right?
yeah,
So just to share this with you, because this aligns perfectly with my dates, because I released in my last YouTube video, I talked about the significance of October 10th and also bringing that to October 14th as the tight window,
mhm,
October 10th and October 14th. And that's literally perfectly what you're saying using your own system. So this is like really blowing my mind.
yeah,
But to just quickly share why the significance of those two dates, it has to do with the numerology. So
mhm,
October 10th, exoterically, like using the Gregorian system, when
mhm,
we have a double digit date numerology of 64, that's been his date. Everything on the 64s have been really specific to him. And I could reveal really quickly just a couple of coincidences. So we have the July 13th date, which was the first attempt on his life, was a 64 date numerology. Then 64 days later was the second attempt on his life, literally the second one that just happened in Florida,
yeah,
which I believe was like the 15th of September,
mhm,
which was a date that I called out because it had a 68 double digit date numerology, and that's the war code. Every time, if you look at the start of World War One, the start of World War Two, the start of Vietnam, the
mhm,
start of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, that was all on a 68. So October 10th is a 64 double digit date numerology, and October 14th naturally is a 68. But I actually came to this code a little bit in a more nuanced way because from July 13th to October 10th, they both have that 64 date numerology, but they're 89 days apart. And 89 is the 24th prime number, and 24 is the number of this year. The number also of the Hebrew year, 5,784, it reduces to 24. So we have our Gregorian synchronized with our Hebrew, and this would be right around the post Rosh Hashanah timeframe, where they're gonna start doing a lot more events, like way more than you're even getting right now, specifically with Lebanon, or at least more countries are gonna become part of the conversation going after Israel. It's one or the other.
yeah,
It's gonna be all about Rosh Hashanah and that total solar eclipse.
yeah,
But pretty amazing that you're sharing your insights and we're getting so dialed in here, adding in these elements of date numerology along with your system. It's October 10th and October 14th. I would be shocked if there's not an event isolated to specifically Trump. And this will be like your final attempt at election interference. And
mhm,
then the last thing I'll say, and then I would love to get into the chart you're about to share, is I do see synchronicities with the year 2000, which was when we had that Florida recount.
mhm.
So there
I mentioned this earlier. Yeah,
I
yeah,
do see that there will not be results in the first 48 hours. They
mhm,
could potentially push it as far as the end of this Saturn retrograde, which would be like, I mean, they could even push it further like they did in 2000, where it went into like December 12th, I believe. Again, another symbolic
yeah,
date. But if they do this, bro,
mhm.
that's going to bring so much market confusion. It's going to bring a lot of
It
issues with
will.
like potential civil unrest
Yeah.
because this is such a heightened election time frame. So
Mhm.
I see that those two specific not outcomes, but those two specific scenarios are very likely. So I love the confirmation that I just got with your work. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. That make it really lines up very interesting, you know. The one of the things I'll say that I did see in Kamala's chart is at the time of the election, like I mentioned, so Jupiter has 2 points in both of their charts where it's like almost about to touch but not quite, and it backs away from it, which is like it's kind of delaying giving them something. But one of the things about Kamala's chart is that her sun, which represents career and the ego, the mind, and how we interpret things, who we are, personality, that is actually conjunct or tied up with the ascendant or the body of the United States, which literally interprets as her ego and her career being tied to the representation of the United States to other people.
Mm.
So,
Guess when her birthday is?
when's her birthday?
It's 1964, which is the year
That's
of the
60.
Wood Dragon, and we're in the year of the Wood Dragon as we speak.
Well, yeah, man.
And the mirror of 64 is 46, and that's the year Trump was born. And what was the date numerology I just told you is attached to him? 64.
Yeah.
They're ritualizing this, man. This number 46 and 64, they're going to continue to play this code all the way throughout this election season and most likely all the way into the year of the snake. And I said this on my recent interview that I just had yesterday. I told them, I said, I know a lot of you guys, because of the audience that I was aware that I was talking to, a lot of you think Trump winning is this big, awesome parade you should throw, but
Mhm.
just expect that if it gets results instantly, meaning if it's your typical, like you get the answer soon, expect a crazy black swan event for the United States of America. That's how I'm looking at it. Like if you just get he doesn't has have any more events between now and then and he just wins seamlessly, bro, they're gonna do some shit.
Yeah.
Because remember when JFK got taken out? It was in November
Well,
after the election time frame.
this is the thing that I was getting into is solar eclipses affect the leadership, and an eclipse, particularly if it's not a good one, shows that a leader is being eclipsed. And the charts that I look at for America, they kind of look like to me that we'll see a leader pass away between now and coincidentally March of 2025. Who might that be? I already talked about some of the narrative or the story with this constellation of our goal affecting both Biden and Trump negatively, and how there's less protective influence or energy for him there. So, lining up with what you're saying, man, if there is an attempt on the 10th or the 14th, the third try might it might have more of an impact than the first two have had, unfortunately. And like I've mentioned with Mars and Cancer over the next 6 months, which is between now and March, people are going to be very emotional and very patriotic. And so if there is a delay and it's given to him, or even if he does win, I don't think it's that clear of a story. And I don't think he's necessarily safe here either. And so we could see that he wins and that there's yet even another attempt on his life or
Yeah.
something like that. Another scenario we could see, because again, this is affecting Biden too, is that Biden can't even continue to run the country, and Kamala's given the seat before, the end of the year, before the 20th of January. That could be something we see as well, which could be very interesting depending on how they even take that in terms of her being in office and then there being an election delay after that. What's
Hmm.
going on there? So this is not going to be a clean election in terms of the results, and I think we can all tell there's going to be people that are not going to be happy with the results, and that unhappiness could manifest as civil unrest in which we lose a leader, or people are being attacked in terms of
Hmm.
just the general public. It could be
Yeah.
generalized terror attacks, which suck on a
Yeah.
civil front. But this location of Mars is it's not the best location for it to be in, and it's here for a prolonged period of time, much longer than it would be. 6 months is a long period of time for Mars to be anywhere, and that means since going back and forth over certain issues, not doing well while it's doing that during this time period. So I have concerns. I have concerns,
Hmm.
particularly because this Mars is at a 90-degree angle to this eclipse as well. So we have an emotional Mars that's not thinking clearly, that that is used for attacking, and it's going to be related to something patriotic. This could also, by the way, manifest as weather-related issues, as so hurricanes, water issues, issues with borders, stuff like that as well, from a weather perspective, because Mars is related to the weather. But again, this eclipse has had so much to do with Israel and that story,
Hmm.
that I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of, again, yet another terror related issue, geopolitical issue, and this might sound crass to some people, but probably a buy the dip opportunity.
Yeah.